John Bell lay dying in his bed. His medicine had been replaced with a mysterious black liquid, and in front of his family, a disembodied voice declared, "He will never rise again." Hours later, he was dead. This is the Bell Witch haunting, America's most famous case of a spirit said to have caused a man's death. The Bells were not unusual. John Bell moved with his wife Lucy and their children from North Carolina to Robertson County, Tennessee in 1804. Their farm stretched over 300 acres along the Red River. John prospered, becoming a deacon in the Red River Baptist Church. Lucy was admired for her generosity and faith. They had 9 children, including their youngest daughter Betsy, who was bright, cheerful, and engaged to a local boy, Joshua Gardner. For more than a decade, life was peaceful. Then, in 1817, that peace was ripped apart. It began with noises. At night, the family heard faint tapping on the walls of their cabin, then scratching like claws raking the wood. Soon came gnawing sounds at the bedposts as if rats were chewing them away. The family set traps. They caught nothing. The sounds escalated, knocking so loud it rattled dishes on shelves, dragging chains across the floor, stones pelting the house from outside with no one in sight. Then the invisible assaults began. Bed covers yanked violently from sleeping children, hair pulled, slaps across faces that left red handprints. One night, John Bell saw a huge bird chirped on the fence, its body like a turkey, but far larger than any he'd ever seen. Another evening, one of the sons spotted a giant dog-like creature prowling the farm. When they shot at it, it vanished instantly. The family prayed harder, but with every prayer, the activity grew stronger. At first, it was only whispers, low, distinct mumbling that came from dark corners of the house. Then gradually, it grew clearer, until the family heard a woman's voice speaking plainly. The spirit laughed, cursed, sang hymns, and even quoted scripture. Finally, it identified itself. "I am Kate." Locals immediately linked it to Kate Batts, an eccentric neighbor who had once argued with John Bell over a land deal. Rumors of witchcraft already swirled around her. Whether this entity was her spirit or something else entirely, it accepted the name. Kate declared her 2 goals: to torment John Bell until his death and to prevent Betsy Bell from marrying Joshua Gardner. Life at the Bell farm became unbearable. Every night seemed to bring a new horror, each more evasive than the last. Betsy, the youngest daughter, often woke to find her hair twisted in knots so tight they ripped at her scalp. Sometimes in the morning, her parents had to cut chunks of her hair off just to free her from the tangles. She would cry, her scalp raw and bleeding as if she had been tortured in her sleep. The other children were no safer. They woke screaming as their blankets were violently ripped from their bed and flung across the room. When they tried to cling to them, the unseen hands pulled harder, leaving the children trembling and exposed in the cold night air. Lucy Bell, known as the most patient and devout woman in the county, broke down more than once, weeping as her family went hungry while the witch laughed at their suffering. John Bell bore the brunt of the ridicule. The witch mocked him mercilessly, calling him Old Jack Bell, spitting curses at him and swearing she would dance on his grave. His once strong frame weakened over time as he was plagued by mysterious seizures, and every time he fell, the voice howled with glee. The Bell Witch didn't just torment the body, she played with the mind. She began imitating the voices of neighbors with chilling accuracy. One evening, the family heard what they thought was a familiar woman's voice calling at the door. When her husband arrived, Lucy asked him why his wife had been by earlier. He looked confused. His wife had never left home. The witch had mimicked her voice so perfectly that even her own husband couldn't tell the difference. And the knowledge she displayed, that was what terrified most people. The Bell Witch recited entire sermons word for word from church services held miles away at the same time. She repeated conversations, whispered privately by neighbors, exposing their secrets with mocking laughter. People who visited the Bell farm left convinced this wasn't a simple prank or trick of imagination. No one could know such things. No one human, at least. The Bells were trapped. Day after day, night after night, the witch's presence grew bolder, sharper, more violent, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. By 1818, the haunting was no longer a family secret. Neighbors came in droves. They wanted to hear the witch for themselves, and they did. Crowds gathered in the Bell home at night, listening as the invisible voice sang hymns, quoted entire sermons, and mocked the guests by name. A minister once tried to banish the witch with prayer. The entity mocked him, repeating his own sermon from memory and declaring, "You are powerless here." Word spread beyond Tennessee. Skeptics, thrill-seekers, and clergymen all came from Robertson Town, leaving convinced or terrified by what they experienced. The most famous visitor was General Andrew Jackson. Intrigued by the legend, he brought a group of men to investigate. As they neared the Bell property, their wagon froze. The horses refused to budge. The wheels seemed locked. Jackson reportedly exclaimed, "It's the witch." Suddenly, a disembodied voice rang out, "You may pass, General." The wagon rolled forward as if nothing had happened. That night, one of Jackson's men bragged he was immune to any spirit. Within moments, he screamed, his body flung across the room by invisible hands, and the witch declared, "I'll deal with him again tomorrow night." Jackson insisted they leave immediately. According to accounts, he later said he would rather fight the entire British Army again than face the Bell Witch. In 1819, John Bell's health declined rapidly. He suffered facial twitches, choking spells, and violent seizures. The witch constantly taunted him, "Old Jack Bell is going to die." On December 19, 1820, he collapsed into a coma. The next morning, his medicine was missing. In its place was a vial of dark liquid. When the family questioned the voice, it laughed, "I gave him his dose. He will never get up again." John Bell died on December 20, 1820. At his funeral, as mourners gathered, the witch interrupted with mocking laughter, celebrated the death it had promised for years. After John's death, the witch announced she was leaving, but before disappearing, she made a promise she would return in 7 years, and according to John Bell Jr., she did. In 1828, the spirit appeared again, speaking with him for weeks about politics, religion, and future events. She predicted wars, family tragedies, and even the rise of Andrew Jackson to the presidency. Then she left once more, claiming she would return in 107 years. In 1935, some locals swore she had come back. Strange noises echoed near the old Bell farm. The cave on the property became notorious for eerie voices and shadows. Visitors still report whispers, touches, and sightings there today. The Bell Witch legend grew, passed down in oral tradition, retold in newspapers, books, and eventually films. It remains one of America's most famous hauntings, unique not just for its violence, but because it named its victims, spoke with clarity, and allegedly caused a man's death. Skeptics say it was hysteria, superstition, maybe even fraud. Believers say it was proof of something darker, an intelligent, malevolent force that destroyed a family. 2 centuries later, the Bell Witch story endures, and in Tennessee, people still whisper, if you visit the cave at night, you just might hear her voice, waiting, reminding you she was never truly gone.